to do this. So once again, maybe I'm going to be brief because we already spent a lot of time to solve this. Welcome from TechQuartier. Welcome also for this community. We are going to start to put on about the topic of quantum computing. Our idea is to present you today at least the view of some of the most prominent people in the area. We have two startups that I will be presenting the adventures. We have IBM talking about the technology, colleagues from EY that are going to talk to you about use cases, and of course representatives from TechQuartier. And given the fact that we don't have much time anyway, we didn't have this before and we'd have even less time now, I would like to welcome on stage immediately Peter Noy, Managing Director from TechQuartier, who's going to provide us with an overview of what is happening in the scene and why it's interesting to engage. Peter, please.
Yeah. Thank you. And for the next, we promise that when the problem comes back, we are going to tunnel through this. Yeah. Welcome to TechQuartier for this very exciting event. We have two startups here. We have one of them I know personally for about 2 years, and they are here at TechQ. They're working here, and we quite frequently talk about this. We have a lot of people in the audience, so this is really a great event going forward. Yeah. Also, a pleasure to work with EY on this. I know that EY is very engaged in startups and all these activities. Francesco, last week we had the EY Startup Academy here hosted at TQ, and very good that this is that you are supporting us on this. And of course we have IBM, and maybe a personal note on that side. I think IBM is regarding insight, understanding, and technology and business is really a very exciting place to be. And my first contact with IBM was about 30 years ago, 86, where two IBM researchers got awarded the Nobel Prize on high temperature semiconductors. And the next one was when IBM computer was beating the world chess champion, and I think it was 96. So you see, I'm a physicist and a chess player. And now you have Eagle, 127 qubit quantum computer, and you promised that in 2 years' time you have 1,000 qubits. So Stefan, I think in 2 years' time we have another event here. I'm really looking forward to this. Yeah. Before we continue, let me use the opportunity to tell you a bit about TQ, what TQ is and what it stands for and where we want to go to. I need to use this here. So, yeah. So TQ was founded about 5 years ago. It's important as public owners, two universities, the City of Frankfurt and the WI Bank. So we are funded by members, and members are, for instance, EY. It's also IBM, and you see the logos below. So we are not taking equity from startups. So we're building a community with startups and with communities, and with corporates, with universities. And this is a place where we want to build entrepreneurs, where we will focus on topics to move forward and have a platform here really to address interesting topics and build entrepreneurship on this. In addition to using formats or offering formats in innovation management, as any hub is probably doing this. So it's working space, it's co-working, we're doing matching services, branding services, incubation services, acceleration services. But the very exciting part of TQ is that we're collaborating with on large projects and trying with these projects to push trends into entrepreneurship. Yeah. And one of these projects I want to refer to, not because it is closely related to quantum computing, but because it could be a prototype for further elaboration of quantum computing here in the community, is the Safe Financial Big Data Cluster, which is a data cluster for AI-based business models in financial services. So the idea to consolidate data sources, use AI-based models on this, and push forward business models on this. And it is organized, and this is maybe interesting also for the discussion we have later in the panel. You have 7 work streams. One work stream is on the IT infrastructure, how to set this up, how to make this running, what the operational model is. One work stream is on the business model. How could you make money out of this? How's the organization on this? And then you're working on AI-based, very interesting use cases, sustainable finance, money laundering, market integrity, monetary policy, and also supply chain finance. And these use cases are also in some respect relevant for quantum computing. Yeah? And it could be a prototype for pushing this topic forward in the community, also here in Frankfurt. And you see it's organized by a consortium of leading firms. IBM is also involved in this, and with associate members, quite a wide community to push this topic forward. Let me stop here, and maybe we can take this back at the panel. And I wish you a very good event. Looking forward to this, and very excited to listen to this, what is now coming. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thanks a lot. You can applause. You can give an applause, of course. Keep the microphone. We're gonna use this once again. I would like now to change a little bit the perspective and invite Dr. Stefan Kister, if I'm correct about that. And now I have to be precise on this. Who is IBM Quantum Distinguished Ambassador, which is already a title in itself, and I hope you can introduce this a little bit better. And Stefan, it's a pleasure to have you here. You are going to present a little bit what quantum is about, and especially how it works. And we look forward to your talk. So one thing that I would like to mention in between for all the people that are in the audience, we are gathering your questions now. We don't have much time also because of the fact that we started a little bit later to go into details right after the presentation, but we will keep them and we will try to use them for the panel as well. So interact with us, do this all along this event. And having said that, Stefan, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Oh, so thank you very much to be here on this event and presenting. Oh, this is the wrong direction. Oh, this is the right direction. And tell you a little about quantum computing, give a little overview about quantum computing, of course, with respect to finance. And you said I need some words about me and about my title. That's right. I'm a quantum ambassador at IBM. That means I'm not a researcher, but I'm somehow in the interface between research and clients. So we are doing quantum introduction workshop. We are doing the first, let's say, programming workshops, how to get started with a quantum computer. And this is, let's say, a part-time job at IBM. I always do some other stuff like IT architecture. But quantum is somehow my passion because I have a chemistry background, and so something came back from my history and now to IBM and to myself. So today I would like to say a little bit about quantum computing technology, and it is definitely a really exciting topic. It's a hot topic, and when you think about all the articles in the news and the press articles, I think it is common belief that quantum computer will somehow disrupt our technologies and our future, definitely. But the question that is not answered yet is when. So this is something really that is not possible to answer today, because what you need if you want to make all this stuff, let's say, reality, what is, let's say, proposed in the press and all the hopes that are inside that are coming with this technology, you need at the end fault-tolerant universal quantum computer, which we do not have today. This is on the time scale a little bit far away, but of course we have, let's say, a continuous development of this technology, and we already made good progress in investigation of this technology and providing already industry applications to this technology. And what we see so far is that there are, at the nearer horizon, application areas that might benefit a little earlier from this quantum effect, from this kind of quantum advantage. And if you look around the industries, of course, the industries around that are close to natural science, like chemical industry or pharmaceutical engineering or material science, those industry will definitely have, let's say, a good promise that maybe an early advantage come with their topics. But there are also other industries, like the finance industry, that are also good candidates to may have early advantages with quantum technology. When we look into the technology, this was one too far. So when we look into the technology area, we do not see such an disruptive effect in the future. That is our view from IBM, because what we see is that classical computing with their bits will still have their important role in the future as well. But these technologies have to integrate with newer kind of technologies. We see AI systems that are coming up, and of course quantum computing. And the applications on this level need this kind of intelligence to do this integration of all this kind of technologies and to use the different kind of technologies to solve the challenging problems of the future. And they need the intelligence to choose which kind of technology is the right for my problem or for the part of my problem. And because you cannot expect that all technologies and all the data you need for the different steps in your calculations are on the same place, they need to have these hybrid cloud capabilities as well. So these are, let's say, the perspective from the technology view. When you look a little bit, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused with the direction, sorry. When you look a little bit deeper into the technology, where does the potential come from when you look at quantum computing? And this is a completely new kind of technology, and what is different, for example, is when you compare it to the information unit, what we have today, the classical bit. The classical bit can only be in the state 1 or 2 at the point in time. But in the quantum world, we use so-called quantum bit that use or leverage different kind of physical foundations or fundamentals. One is the so-called superposition. That means the qubit can have the position either 1 or 0 at the same time. So when we measure a qubit, we need to do the experiment several times at the end to, let's say, prove statistically if it's the right result. When you look a little bit deeper, as far as the qubit is in a so-called quantum state, we can use almost all states that are possible between 0 and 1. And a second physical foundation, that is the so-called entanglement. Entanglement is when we have 2 qubits and we entangle those qubits, they build a completely new state, a 2-qubit state. And this state is not possible in the classical world, and this state cannot be divided into the 1-qubit states anymore. And the advantage is, if you know the status about 1 qubit, you definitely know ad hoc the status of the other qubit. And we can use this in our algorithms, for example, to control the qubit states, or to have to get indirect information about other qubits. And the third physical foundation is the so-called interference. So the qubits are behaving like waves, and these waves can interact also with each other. They can, let's say, destructive or constructive way, and the amplitudes can be amplified or destroyed at the end. And all these 3 physical capabilities can be used with the qubit and can be used in the so-called quantum circuit, which is a unit of computation. And this is also different in comparison to the classical world. A quantum circuit is the unit of computation. At the beginning, the qubits are brought into the initial state, and over time, we manipulate this qubit with so-called quantum gates. We have different kind of gates. We have gates that are only addressed to a single qubit, like the H gates that are represented here as an example. And we have these qubit gates a little bit closer to qubits, and we can entangle them and use the control of this qubit. So where is the technology today? I think it is a good look at the IBM quantum roadmap we provided so far. We just released a new kind of system. As it was mentioned at the beginning, we have this Eagle system that has 127 qubits. And we are on this roadmap to over 1,000 qubits until 2023. He said, I have 10 minutes, not 5, so that's very good, so I have to a little bit lower the speed. We have over 1,000 qubits in the time frame of 2 years. So this is quite challenging because, let's say, the engineering of such amount of qubits is really a challenging task. But we have a good plan to do the next steps around next year, around 400 qubits, and then with 1,000 qubits in 2 years. But we are not address the hardware stack. We want to also address the general stack above the hardware. So of course, we are looking into this kernel stack, and we released, for example, this year, the Qiskit runtime. This Qiskit runtime is a processing engine how to better process quantum circuits on a quantum computer, and this will accelerate the speed of execution on a quantum computer for a certain kind of algorithms with a very high performance in comparison to what we have before. We will go to the so-called quantum dynamic circuits. These dynamic circuits will bring us a little bit more flexibility inside the circuit. Today, the circuit is running as a whole, as a monoblock on the quantum computer, but with dynamic circuits, we will be able to use results during a quantum circuit is running on a quantum computer. And of course, we will address the algorithm part. Actually, we have open sourced our software development kit, which is called Qiskit. And Qiskit can be used to program, for example, applications and algorithms on quantum computers. And it is independent from the technology, which is lying below this development kit. You can use it on our superconducting computers, but it's also available on some ion trap computers that are available also from other vendors. Our vision is in the future that we would like to have such kind of modular developers. So we are actually restructuring the Qiskit into new models. These models are, let's say, the source and the further development of the APIs. And we are, let's say, looking currently at the modules optimization, natural science, machine learning, and finance, because these are the first application areas where we think of that they, let's say, will benefit from quantum advantage. And these modules then will be developed until we start 2023 with this kind of, let's say, new providing of APIs and libraries that people who are not so deep in the quantum area and not so, let's say, skilled in the understanding of a quantum computer that is running below, but they are then, let's say, be able to use a quantum computer and to integrate it into their applications, into their business applications, and to use the power of quantum for their challenging problems. Good. Coming from the technology now a little bit to the application areas. we categorize these kind of applications that can be addressed to a quantum computer. Today in these categories, natural science, so simulating quantum systems, artificial intelligence, and optimization and Monte Carlo simulations. If we project this to the world of quantitative finance, for example, because this is interesting today, we already made good experiences with some application areas in this field. For example, in the field of combinatorial optimization, we already published what we call illustrative examples. It's a scientific paper which shows how to use a quantum computer, for example, in the terms of portfolio optimization or index tracking or transaction or security settlement. We also have made good experiences in the field of scenario simulations, so simulations that are classically done with Monte Carlo simulations today. So analyzing risk or risk indices like value at risk or conditional value at risk, but also the pricing of financial assets or option pricing is a category we already, let's say, investigated on. And last but not least, the field of machine learning is also very important, and we have some papers published around fraud and anti-money laundering, how a quantum computer can be used in future with this kind of, let's say, industry context. So when you would like to start with your journey to quantum computing, you see hopefully, or you have seen hopefully, that the technology is completely new. So intellectual property is totally underdeveloped. And for the companies, it is, I think, now the best time to start the journey and to develop this kind of intellectual property. But you do not have to underestimate that you need, of course, the talents and the right people to start this journey. And the learning curve is steep, so you need really much more time than you need for, let's say, classical projects. Normally, we say the journey to quantum is not a sprint, it is a marathon. So you need time, you need team to start your journey, of course, and that is not very easy to get the team running. But what you can expect is all the things that you, let's say, develop on the quantum technology we have today. We call them noisy intermediate scale quantum computing, which is called here on the chart with NISQ. All that stuff can be then easily transformed to a quantum computer that is ready in the future, that is universal and fault tolerant. So the way now to start is to get quantum ready and to be there when the quantum technology becomes more and more mature. So at the end, how can you start in a concrete manner? At IBM, we provide these two paths where you can start from. We have a totally, let's say, free or open source part. We provide free resources, quantum resources to everyone. You just have to register on the IBM Quantum Experience website. We have open sourced our development kit, which is Qiskit. And we provide also, when you do not want to install Qiskit on your local machine, we provide the Quantum Lab or the Quantum Composer in a browser to use and to make your first steps on a quantum computer. This is totally free, and you can start on your own, in your own pace. And and I think that is the best way to have, let's say, the first look on this technology and gather if this is interesting for me. You definitely need more, because you do not have to underestimate the complexity of this technology. Because it is so new, you cannot do that, let's say, beside your normal job. You need, let's say, a dedicated job and your dedicated time to go deeper into this technology, to understand the technology, to understand the algorithm, and at the end, to understand how I can transform my mathematical problem to a quantum computer. And for companies in this area, we provide this kind of quantum network program. This is not free anymore. The companies or the people, the startups or the universities have to pay a little bit for it. And they get, let's say, access to larger computers. You get learning by skilled education by IBM and so on. And in context of this quantum network, we also released, let's say, a new accelerator program that is, let's say, giving you the chance to start with this technology, start with the learning phase, and at the end, after 3 years, you are able to do your own, let's say, intellectual property. You can do your own use cases with quantum. So that is, let's say, the target of this program, and it is going over 3 years and provide you with the right skills to be quantum ready after this journey. And with that, I'm ready and I'm finishing my presentation. I hope you could get a little bit understanding more of quantum computing, and if you have questions or would like to hear more, you can contact me or someone from IBM, and we can make a first introduction workshop to quantum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Stefan, thank you very much, Stefan. I think you managed to provide a very good introduction about the topic. I'm very happy about that because it was also helpful for me, because even though you read a lot about quantum computing, it's always something different if you hear this from a person that is very familiar with the topic. I can provide you some hints. I think you mentioned one point, and I'm very happy about that. Quantum computing is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And we are here today to start this journey together. We are here today to start this journey also together with you. And there's one point, if you have further questions for Stefan, my suggestion will be please include them in the chat. We are going to try to deal with them also during the panel. But having said that, after this introduction about the technology, it's now time to talk about use cases. It's now time to talk about finance. This is a quantum event in finance. And I would like to welcome on stage Jan Rosam, partner at EY, and the leader for quantum in finance at our company, Jan. Having said that, the stage is yours. Please take your time.
Thanks very much, Francesco. Yeah. Hello, everyone. All right, thanks very much for having me here in the TechQuartier. So it's always refreshing to see all the quantum computing enthusiasts here at the TechQuartier. And I remember when I attended the first quantum computing meetup. I think it was 2 years back, organized by Markus and Niklas from EOS Quantum, which basically kicked off, I think, the topic in Frankfurt. And we have a community now here, and that's great to see. So yeah, so what is my angle to quantum computing? And I'm a partner at EY in our technology consulting practice, and I'm responsible for our emerging technologies, which include other stuff like AI. We heard about this, cloud, blockchain, but also quantum computing. And why I'm so enthusiastic about it is because I have a PhD in mathematics and computer science. And when I did my research many years back, so I worked in different scientific groups where we did large simulations. So, for example, it was the time when the first tsunami hit the island in Asia, and there was a big interest from research society, from the research community, to forecast these kind of events because it's time critical. And so I was part of this research group, and we used the biggest computers we have in the world, and we were not even able to get closer to a timely prediction of tsunamis. So therefore, we have a limitation on the classical computers today, and so therefore I'm really enthusiastic about quantum computing, specifically from the application side. So I'm not the physicist, I'm not the hardware expert. So yeah, if we talk about financial institutions and their journey to quantum computing, then we see already now that some of the institutions are engaged. In this field, we see the first use cases to come up.
So I think some of the specifically larger institutions have realized that the topic is here to stay. It's not too far out, and I will make a prediction, Stefan, maybe. So of course we are consultants, we have a point of view on where things will happen. So I believe that in the next 5 years we will see real-world problems to be solved with a quantum computer. So therefore, 5 years' time in the time horizon of a large financial institutions is just around the corner. So, I always compare this with the cloud journey a financial institution had. I mean, it's a technology which is 20 years old, but just today, basically, financial institutions are moving into the cloud. So therefore, 5 years' time is not much. So some of the players on the are already engaged, and I think that the reason is that if you look at the development of quantum computing, of course it goes back to some German guys who basically laid the foundation for quantum mechanics and quantum computing. But we are at the moment in this let's say prediction really on the edge of acceleration. So, and I think there are a couple of parameters where you can see. So one is of course IBM, who actually made it available, made quantum computer available for everyone. So you can actually program yourself on a quantum computer. We see 127 qubits, and Stefan, as said earlier, we expect in 2 years' time 1,000 qubits. So I mean, we have a setup which allows us to play around and to actually get familiar with. But also we see this on the funding side. I mean, the German government, that's the good thing. We have a physicist as a chancellor, of course, promoted heavily quantum computing. So we have seen a 2 billion funding program. We see huge funding rounds on the European level. We see China investing 17 billion on quantum computing. So I mean, so all of these aspects, I think, made it right to say we are now at the beginning of this hockey stick, which we see at the end. Of course, there was an event, I think it was last year, where Google basically showed their supremacy, which of course, for everyone who is deeply involved, it was a theoretical problem. But of course, still we showed the supremacy of quantum computer over classical computers. So therefore, we are at the beginning of the application phase. So I believe, I think in the last couple of years, we spent a lot of time, and we will continue to spend a lot of time on the hardware. But now, and Stefan explained as well, the evolution of the application layer. So we will go up in the hierarchy and see computer programming language to be developed on quantum computer, etc. So which will accelerate the development. So, but again, so what's the problem we're trying to solve? And I mean, we are used to these, to Moore's law on the basically computing power in our classical world, for computer world. But what we see, basically, we are converging to a certain point. And this is basically due to physics again. So I mean, the CPUs we have today, they are limited on the physics. So basically, we cannot put more on a small chip than we have today. But what we usually do is, and that's what I did in my research as well, so we just combine CPUs and computers. So we build large parallel computers. But the problem is, if you add more computers, then the communication time you need to communicate between all these computers becomes so big that the effect by adding more computer power is basically eaten up by the communication time. So I think we will eventually somewhere converge and see kind of less aggressive growth in computing power going forward. So therefore, we need quantum computing, and I think Stefan explained, and I think what is important, and just for people who are not so into these things, we basically, so the degrees of freedom, or whatever you call it, statuses we measure in quantum computing is always 2 to the power of qubits. So therefore, if we imagine we have a 127 qubit computer, then let's say the degrees of freedom are 2 to the power of 127. So, and I just heard last week a comparison, just to give you a feeling about the number. If you take all the atoms on Earth, it's still smaller than 2 to the power of 100. So therefore, it shows that we will receive a power for computing which is enormous. And therefore, the expectation is, of course, that we see an exponential growth in our algorithms. So, and this is, of course, the theory. So, I mean, not all algorithms will scale exponentially. And I think we can talk about this on the panel a little bit more. But, I mean, this is basically the power we expect. So if we go to the applications, and I think Stefan mentioned already a lot of use cases. So, I mean, we see use cases in all industries. So I think the earliest movers were on life science. I think truck prediction, or let's say truck development is one area. We see a lot of automotive supply chain firms looking into quantum. But then, of course, financial institutions, because a lot of financial institutions have computer intense, let's say, calculations to do to predict their risks, to make forecasts, to have portfolio substitution and portfolio optimization. So financial service firms are, of course, one of the benefit of quantum computing. At least that's what we believe. So now I make some predictions on the timing. Of course, it's a point of view, and Stefan is closer to the hardware, but I think we believe that in the short term, so short term for us means, let's say in the next 2 years, we will see applications in optimization. So basically, I think this is what we call binary optimization. So you have a portfolio, you add another asset, you recalculate, take it out, add another one. So basically, defining the best optimal portfolio. So those kind of use cases are scaling very nicely with quantum computer. So we see a lot of use cases around random number generation, because when you look at the way how we today generate random numbers, then it's actually not random. So, I mean, there are already ways to do this, really, to have random numbers. But, I mean, on a quantum computer, this gets gives another dimension to it. And I think random number generation is part of the financial service valuations everywhere. So, therefore, there's a use case around this. So, midterm, we will see machine learning and sensitivity analysis. Niklas will probably prove it incorrect, because he already did a use case with Deutsche Börse on sensitivity analysis. So, but I think this is so midterm, and then in the long term, we of course will see the more complicated stuff to happen on derivative pricing. I mean, we see some simple use cases already in this field, but I think it's a bit way out. We need more power to do this. So, and to accomplish my suggestion on the timing, we've done some research here on the on a smaller group of people or institutions, and you can see more than 50% predicted that we will see larger scale problems to be solved by quantum computer in the next 5 to 10 years. So, and I think this is a little bit contradictory to, we discussed this before, to the Gardner prediction, because Gardner is still seeing quantum computing way out there, but I think it's far closer than we think. And the reason for this is that quantum computing not only has a benefit side, but it also has an issue, so it has a threat which comes with it. And the threat is that if we get an exponential scale up, there was a guy called Shor in 1964 who developed a quantum algorithm which allows prime factorization or integer factorization to be done in much quicker and much better on a quantum computer. So therefore, we will see in the near future, whenever that is, that the classical cryptographic algorithms we use today, which are built on prime factorization or on prime numbers will be able to be hacked. So, and I think Rashid will talk about this later on because it's his fintech who focus on this. But I think if you keep this in mind, then this is a big threat, not just for all of us, but of course for financial institutions, because financial institutions, of course, work on a critical infrastructure. I mean, they provide payments for us. All of this is based on cryptographic methodology. And so therefore, even if we don't have the benefits maybe, or let's say we have the benefits maybe in a couple of years' time, this is something which is really urgent, because what we see now is that some of the, let's say, hackers already collecting data, knowing that in 5 years' time you can hack it. So therefore, some of the information is still very interesting to know in 5 years' time. So therefore, we see banks, when they approach this topic, really to come from two sides. It's one really from the what do I need to do in order to prevent certain things to happen to me? And on the other side, how can I use quantum computing as a benefit? So, and what we did here is a little bit, so the question is, so where will we be in 2024? So it's basically after IBM came up with their 1000 qubit computer. So, and then, I mean, we basically see three areas which are important. So the first one is really the post-quantum cryptography. So basically making sure that the cryptographic algorithms which are used in financial institutions are quantum safe. So there are certain initiatives in the industry ongoing. So we have NIST, which are this, let's say, standard setting body in the US on cryptographic algorithms. They will propose new algorithms in the next 2 years. And there are different industry working groups working on this transition, because you need to imagine a global financial institution has thousands of IT systems. I mean, it's a huge organization. Just to figure out where they use which cryptographic algorithm, it's just a big undertaking. And if we predict that we will be able to hack these algorithms, let's say in 3 or to 5 years' time, it's not much time left. So the second thing is really that quantum optimization will basically, what we believe, there is a high probability that we see in 3 years' time the first use case on the bank, and then a bit later out, of course, machine learning is a big field, because I think there are three technologies which I believe will be really disruptive for the, not just for the society, but also for our financial institutions. It's blockchain, it's artificial intelligence, and it's quantum computing. And of course, quantum computing will basically enable AI to work in a proper way. So therefore, there are a lot of use cases around machine learning. So, yeah, just so where are we at EY? We have a network now set up, a global network which consists of more than 200 people. We are working in the quantum computing space in different aspects. Of course, it's a lot of education. I think all of us who here on the panel is working on the education side. We do a lot of training for clients. We support clients in evaluating their hardware requirements, and we do also have the first POCs and use cases done internally on different technology stacks. And of course, we're ramping up because it will also affect our business in all our services. And of course, it will have huge benefits, but also we need to make sure that our clients are safe and secure in this environment. So if you want to, there are a lot of white papers out there, so we publish a lot on this globally. If someone is interested, I can share it with you. We also did a podcast with Stefan and Niklas just recently, so if you want to learn a little bit more about quantum computing, specifically as an introduction, then I think the podcast is a good way, and we will continue to develop a series of podcasts. And then, of course, finally, we have some younger people here in the audience, so we are hiring. So we will build out our team, and so therefore, if anyone is interested in helping financial service clients in their quantum computing journey, then feel free to contact me. So therefore, I think back to you, Francesco.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Jan, indeed, for the very interesting presentation, for the insights that you shared with us. I'm trying to reconnect the dots. I mean, we've been saying that you mentioned this in a couple of years, quantum computers will allow us to do things that are maybe unimaginable or even right now with a power that we cannot even quantify really at this stage. Stefan, you mentioned before, it's already, or actually even Peter, you mentioned before, in 2 years, 1,000 qubits. And Stefan, you mentioned it's a marathon, not a sprint, but it seems to me that even if it's a marathon, we don't have much time. And we really need to speed up, we really need to engage in this technology, especially we need to have the right people that are driving this. And I'm very happy that we have some of them here in Frankfurt. I did a quick research about all the companies around that are dealing with quantum computing, specifically with quantum computing, so that they have the mission to build or work with quantum computers as their statements. And worldwide, there are not more than 250 companies that I could identify through official databases. And I'm very happy that today with us we have at least 2 startups coming from the ecosystem, and I would like to welcome the first one on stage, and having Yours Quantum taking the stage to have a first presentation. And I would like you to please call me Niklas, Managing Director of Yours Quantum. The stage is yours.
Thanks very much, Francesco. Do you hear me? Yep. So thanks very much for this very nice evening. We're very happy that this topic finally kicks off here again after Corona. So yeah, I'm going to give you a very, very short introduction about us, about Just Quantum, and what we do and how you can interact actually with quantum computers. So we are a pure play quantum computing company, and we are bringing quantum to the industries of finance, insurance, and energy markets. I myself, I'm Niklas. Together with Markus, founded the company in 2018. I have a background in physics and some years of consulting, software integration experience, and yeah, this is actually the team. So we are a small team of 4 persons, but very deep roots in the financial industry. So for example, Sven has a PhD in physics, was a former head of research from a prop trading company developing quantum models, developing quantitative models. Joining in 2019, Thomas is actually developing the last 20 years quantum algorithms and doing software development. Markus is also sitting here. He's a theoretical physicist with work experience in machine learning and fraud detection. And I was already talking about myself. So we are having the mission to bringing and showing the industry the advantages of quantum computing. We are working with a very active and diverse ecosystem. So we are not only in the IBM quantum network since 2018 and having access also to the IBM machines, but also to other technologies that can provide or that provide quantum advantages. For example, AQT from Austria using ion trap technology. We're working in 2 research projects together with Fraunhofer Technomathematics in Kaiserslautern. One research project is in energy markets called ENAQuant, and the other research project funded by the government of Germany is Project Kister, quantum algorithms for strategic asset allocation, where we work with the insurance company R&V Versicherung about the topic of how to allocate assets optimally. Also, this field of quantum needs a good connections to the field of academia. So we are working with University of Heidelberg and University of Trento. And yeah, since we founded the company, we're based here in TechQuartier. So this is what we currently do. Stefan already gave an outline of the time frame and the potential that is coming in the future, but the main question still for all the companies is, what does it bring to my business, and how can I leverage, how can I use this technology? And therefore we provide knowledge transfer services to understand like what is quantum all about, and to identify the use cases that potentially can be run on a quantum computer. And secondly, we do prototypes, so we build the proof of concepts, evaluate the use cases and the potential business values. And the main question is always, when is the hardware ready for my business case, and what is the business value? So these two answers we are giving together with clients. And the vision of all of that is, we call it calculation as a service. So it's a two-folded way we are going. So the first type are new kind of models you can use, so the quantum models, and the second part is using or evaluating the models. And Jan from EY already mentioned like the last use case we built together with Deutsche Börse Group is about sensitivity analysis. So it's a combination about a network, evaluating a network using Monte Carlo methods. So with our software, it will be possible to use quantum computers when they are ready. So that's it from my side. Happy to participate in the panel later on, and now it's
Thank you very
Rashid's
much,
stage.
Nicholas. So thank you very much for the presentation and the time. We now have another startup presenting and telling us about their story, but also connecting an important topic about quantum computing and cybersecurity. I'm happy to have you here, Rashid, today. And just to remind you, if you have any questions, please write them in the chats. We are going to try to deal with them during the panel. But having said that, Rashid, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here. In fact, it's, I think, my second time or first time. I'm not sure. It looks very similar. Yeah, my topic is cybersecurity, and I hope I can I make a little bit fear in order for the industry, for the finance sector to move with respect to quantum-resistant security. So I will start with the following, to proving the following statement, namely that cybersecurity is fundamental for the business and the finance sector. To prove this, we first come to know that trust is a fundamental pillar of the business and finance sector. And people come and pay with cards and pay money to the banks, and by this, in the past, we had a lot of people that put money in the banks and leave the cash in banks, and nowadays it is very different. They pay with cards and via the internet, and security has been changed. That means trust is achieved via concrete cybersecurity rules. However, if cybersecurity is insufficiently guaranteed, it is easy for an adversary to change the system. That means he can get access to the money and get confidential data, which translates into loss of trust, and this in turn translates to loss of reputation, loss of customers, or even bankruptcy. But which data are we talking about? Well, there are a lot of data out there which are very important and have long life cycles. We talk about data, highly sensitive data, such as contracts or financial information, lock-in data, and system access data. And furthermore, there are highly safety-critical data, which are used to operate the whole infrastructure. But if an adversary gets access to it, it will compromise the complete infrastructure. So, with a quantum computer, we are able to completely break currently applied public key cryptography. And this is done by the prominent Shor algorithm, which was invented in 1994, and which allows to retrieve the secret key and the messages that have been encrypted. And this poses a great threat to the current IT infrastructure. And we can even attack the infrastructure by today. And this is done by buying a lot of storage and collecting all the encrypted data that is accessible. And finally, we can use a quantum computer via the cloud in order to reveal its secret contents. And this is the Shor algorithm. Maybe someone of you has already seen this picture somewhere else. And he developed a quantum algorithm which allows to decompose large numbers into its factors. And the RSA crypto system is used to perform digital signatures or to encrypt messages. And when we apply Shor's algorithm to such a large number or any other RSA modulus, it can factor or retrieve the prime factors from which we can compute the secret signing or encryption keys. So cybercrime is one of the top 4 economic crimes, and it is valued to $1 trillion US dollars a year. Whereas the cybersecurity market is valued to $150 billion. So when quantum computers, scalable quantum computers, come into existence, what do you think, how much would the costs increase? We at Quanticore provide the next generation of cybersecurity solutions that are resistant against any kind of attacks, especially quantum computer attacks, and we develop and offer next generation or quantum safe technologies for the various purposes, such as protecting components or whole infrastructures. We also help companies to assess their security risk and help them to plan their or to perform a real migration strategy. We are awarded several awards due to our innovative technologies, but not only due to its quantum computer resistance, but also for the nice features it provides. For instance, it lowers the complexity and furthermore lowers the costs. And we recently established the first standard for quantum safe encryption, which is available as a DIN spec. It can be accessed online, so you can download it freely. And it helps to encrypt data in a quantum safe manner and protect it from any adversary that has access to a quantum computing device. But we also provide various or a multitude of different technologies in order to protect the different use cases that do exist in companies. For instance, we help to protect the communication channel against any kind of attacks, because for an adversary, it is the most interesting target in the near future. Furthermore, we provide solutions for the cloud applications and for the infrastructure. This is especially important when companies move to the cloud in order to reduce the costs or as a part of the migration strategy. We, for instance, provide key management systems or public key infrastructures to help or to simplify the migration to the cloud. We furthermore provide quantum safe applications, which, such as an encryption gateway or a complete platform allowing to sign contracts in the cloud. Finally, we provide also the means for companies to build their own quantum safe applications, not needing to wait for others to build them for them. Finally, here's the last slide, which shows our encryption gateway. It is a solution which helps users to encrypt data before being transmitted into the cloud, where it is stored persistently and in an encrypted form. That means neither the cloud provider nor any other person can access the data without having the encryption keys. And the opposite side works similarly. Before the users get access to the different data, it is decrypted locally in the network infrastructure. And by this, I want to thank you for this talk and for your attention. and I hope I can answer other questions within the panel.
Thank you very much, Rashid. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. It is kind of strange because we started by mentioning quantum computing is going to happen, then we shortened a little bit the time, and now listening to your presentation, it seems like quantum computing is already there. We need to do something concretely. But that's already to let you understand what kind of perspectives we have. And talk about perspectives, I'm very happy that we are going to start soon the panel. So please, Rashid, take a seat, as well as Peter, Stefan, and Nicholas as well. Jan, please come on stage, because Jan, you are going to lead the panel. And having said that, I would like to give you the word.
Sure, perfect. Thank you very much. So I think we still need chairs. So perfect, Francesco, great. All right. Yep. Yeah, I can stand. But yeah, maybe I'm standing. It's fine. All right. Thank you very much for the inspiring talks. So I think there are, as we heard this evening, there are different aspects on quantum computing. So let's kick off the round a little bit, and let's start again with Stefan. So I mean, we heard this a couple of times. So in 2 years' time, IBM will have a 1,000 qubit system to be ready for every one of us to use. So the question is really, is this enough to see real-world financial service use cases to happen, or do we still need to progress on the hardware side?
Well, actually, with 1,000 qubits, or let me step a little bit back, because we announced just a system with 127 qubits, and which makes me a little bit proud, because you cannot simulate such system anymore with a classical system, although this system cannot compete definitely with classical systems in terms of calculations or business calculations. But we come into this area of pure quantum, and you need this for the development of, let's say, further or systems with higher number of qubits. So we will provide next year the system with 400 qubits, and you mentioned it, in 2 years' time frame a system with over 1,000 qubits. Is this possible to have a quantum advantage with such a system? And this is also very difficult to answer. There are some promising application areas that might have a quantum advantage with a system of this size, but it's really not definitely be answered now, right? But with a qubit system of 1,000 qubits, we can definitely move into this area of creating logical qubits out of the physical qubits. So this system will definitely be the starting point for us to go into this area of providing logical qubits, which then perhaps is somehow end up in the area of universal fault-tolerant quantum systems.
So I think one aspect maybe for the audience to understand is error correction. So basically, I think one of the challenges that the quantum computers are making errors, and those errors basically can affect the results of the quantum computer. So, but maybe Niklas, when we come to the application side, so maybe again the question to you is, I mean, 1,000 qubits. I mean, we heard you did some work with Deutsche Börse. So is that for you then the step into the real world applications?
Okay, so let me outline and explain a little bit here, because 1,000 qubits is, or 1,000 qubits logically and physically is something completely different. So what I mentioned before is the work we did in March with Deutsche Börse, the sensitivity analysis, which is basically a kind of use case that is classically intractable. So we simulated it, and if you want to have an answer of what are your most sensitive factors in a risk model, you need years, 10 years, more than 10 years of calculation time. And with a quantum computer, you can bring the calculation time, the runtime down to minutes. So this is a case which is possible with only a few hundred qubits. But a quantum algorithm has very easily spoken like 2 dimensions. So first is the number of qubits, the algorithm width, or the number of qubits you need. And the other parameter you have is the algorithm depth. So how long are your algorithms? And a 1,000 qubit quantum computer sounds pretty good, but it only provides you a certain height for your algorithm, so a certain state space. And to run an algorithm which has a certain depth, you need so-called error correction. And we are really looking forward to having access to such a system, but with 1,000 physical qubits, it's still not clear what are the advantages you have. Not speaking about quantum advantage, which is an event where a real-world problem can be solved more efficiently or faster than a classical problem, but also go to a kind of business value creation, because sometimes it doesn't matter if you have 1 or 2 minutes more time for your calculation. So the problems are relevant where where minutes or hours really matter.
Yeah, no, sure. I think that's a good point. So, and I think it's always the time. It's always when we see new technology to come, isn't it? So, I mean, of course, I think we have the long-term view that we will see supremacy, but probably my view is, and I think that's also your view, is we shouldn't wait until we have supremacy to start doing quantum computing. So, but I mean, to move to the other aspect and to the other side, Rashid, for quantum computing, basically the cybersecurity aspect you talked about. So basically, are you and your clients getting nervous then with the 1,000 qubit system, or can you explain a little bit your view on when are we actually in the right space and the right time to have sure algorithms really work and crack our cryptographic systems?
Yes, that's a very good question, I must say. First of all, if we have something like 1,000 qubits, well-functioning qubits, this means that progress has been made, first of all. Secondly, it means also that scalability, there is some way to obtain more qubits. Has been established a way to scale the number of qubits, which is very important to have all the applications being realized. And furthermore, this means for us as cybersecurity specialists that there's not so much time, right? Because you need to prepare yourself as a company in advance in order to be able to combat this kind of attacks due to Shor. Of course, Shor's algorithm requires a little bit more of physical qubits in order to achieve the required logical qubits. However, in the short term, that means that large companies which are very slow, that it is already maybe too late for them to act. So they need to speed up their processes internally.
No, I understand where you're going to. So, and I think we all received your message, and I think it's a very powerful message you are sending out. So, but let's go back to the good side. Basically, using quantum computer for doing good stuff, not bad stuff. So, basically, what we didn't talk about today is about the hardware, how it looks like, and things. I mean, we all know that's how a quantum computer looks like. But basically, maybe Stefan, to you. So, I mean, how can people kind of imagine what a quantum computer looks like? So, basically, is this the new laptop? So, can I have a quantum computer to go in 5 years' time, or what does the hardware look like? And then also, the question is a little bit. I mean, how does this integrate with our today's classical computers? So what will be the, I mean, you mentioned cloud hybrid approaches. So what's your view on how the IT infrastructure will look like?
Well, actually, to make a personal picture of a quantum computer, you have to go to Eningen, because we have a quantum computer here in Germany. Together with Fraunhofer, we are cooperating in a so-called hub partnership. And as a company, you are definitely able to get, let's say, close to a quantum computer, have a look at it. At the moment, we are, let's say, using so-called superconducting qubits, which need to be very cold at the end. So we are having systems that are running at 0 Kelvin. There are only a few millikelvin left at the end. Just to, let's say, be safe against any energy that coming from the outside world impacting our qubits. So at the moment, the quantum computer looks like a big fridge. So you have what you will see when it is operating is just a tube. And inside the tube, there are a lot of, I will call it cabling or something like that, that is necessary for the cooling and also for the signal providing to the quantum chip. So there are different kind of technologies, and there are, let's say, 3 kind of technologies that are quite mature at the moment. That is superconducting qubits, ion traps, and photons at the moment. But there are, of course, other, let's say, research projects that looking at other kind of possibilities to create qubits, and they look definitely different than the quantum computer we have today. So we provide the quantum computer, as you need a lot of other stuff than today. So you need something, a lot of material or devices to get the vacuum at the device, which is not, let's say, a normal device in the data center today. We provide these kind of technology as a cloud service, and we see that most of the computing resources in the future will be provided as a cloud service. And that is also one reason why we start, let's say, having also cloud services available in the IBM cloud, as other vendors have already done.
So therefore, I cannot picture my laptop to be run as a quantum computer.
Well, actually, to make experience on a quantum computer is quite easy, because it is possible to have free access to a quantum computer, and you can probably have, let's say, your first experiences. How can I program on a quantum computer, right? And this is the easiest way.
Cool. No, okay. So I think from my view is, so we will see going forward like a hybrid IT architecture, isn't it? So a combination of using our classical computer basically as desktops, and then accessing quantum computer power as we access computer power in a cloud environment. So therefore, the expectation is not that every bank will basically have a quantum computer in their cellar. So it will be as a service provided. So I think that's at least the picture I have in mind. Yeah. So, but maybe Niklas, back to you on the application side. So, I mean, when we think about financial institutions, so you can ask the question, and you talked about assessing the business value. So basically, where do you see the business value for using quantum computers? And I mean, I'm from the investment banking side, so I mean, if I see large investment banks moving into this space, then you sometimes you know why they are doing it. So of course they want to gain benefits out of it. They want to use the technology maybe to gain benefits. So, but what's your view? And then the second question, basically, which follows up, is so what happens to those who are not engaging in quantum computing? I mean, will they be left behind? So what's your view?
So maybe to give you like 2 concrete examples about the potential business value. So in asset allocation, for example, an insurance company needs to budget their fees and to allocate their capital in capital markets. So they are having like a strategic asset allocation process. So they are having a 100 billion portfolio to be allocated in capital markets in 30 asset classes. So if you can gain with a good algorithm, with a good optimization algorithm, like a few basis points, this means having a few millions more revenue. And this process is actually not about optimization only, it's about matching capital requirements as well. So it's a part of simulation, it's a combination of simulation and optimization. And if you can gain only a few basis points, it makes a difference, bottom line. The other example is in running simulations. So if you are pricing OTC derivatives, for example, and you're having 1 hour to deliver an answer to a client, and you only have 1 hour, and then you need to put your price. But your Monte Carlo simulation maybe runs 10 days to give you a precise answer. Having an answer that has the precision for the same precision as a classical simulation running 10 days gives you a huge benefit. And I think that's like the bottom line. Like technology leading companies, they think about what could be a potential advantage against my competitors. And for early stage technologies, you need to get involved very early, and to attract talent is not easy. And so it differentiates over time. So yeah, putting budget into the technology, the time is now, in my opinion.
I think that's I can resonate with this message. So I think what I think about application is really, since we are still at the beginning, I think we don't actually know what the application will be. So because I'm always referring to the internet. When we invented the internet, no one knew that TikTok will be basically something which comes out of it, the internet. So, or that we have, I don't know, 75% of the people working from home. It's a result of generating the internet. So I think if we, of course, we are stuck to where we are today and trying to make things better than we have today, but I think there are applications which we have not explored yet, which we don't know yet. So therefore, that's the reason why I personally think that quantum computer will be life-changing, because we can do stuff which we have not imagined, or which we're not imagining today. So therefore, at least that's my philosophical view on quantum computing, why I'm also so excited about this. So, but I mean, Rashid, you talked about preparation for the, I think you called this the apocalypse. So, so I think, I mean, when we think about specifically financial service organizations, I mean, they are global organizations. They have hundreds of subsidiaries around the world. Every subsidiary has their own IT stack. So, I mean, when you look at this, I mean, the question first is, I mean, how can those companies approach this? And secondly, really, what is meant with quantum agility? And also the question is really, how can they at least make sure that the problem doesn't get worse? Because, I mean, every of those institutions, they are adding IT systems every day. So, and yeah, so maybe, what's your view on that?
Yeah, well, it's really difficult because it's getting very complex. So the companies have a lot of different areas where they're working with and working with other partners, and different systems which are very heterogeneous. So it is first important to understand oneself before one can act. So for the companies, for the finance industry, that means that they need to understand their own infrastructure, their security, in fact, and this can be done in 5 steps. So first of all, they need to collect all the information about their cryptographic measures. That means their security systems, what they are using, etc. And this is somehow collected in an inventory. And in the next step, they can really assess whether those cryptographic means or mechanisms are resistant or not resistant to the against quantum computer attacks, in simple words. And in the third step, the company tries to figure out which components or which systems are affected by these cryptographic measures, or the ones that are vulnerable to quantum computer attacks. Because then they can identify the real threats or the real risks within their whole company infrastructure. And by putting concrete risk indicators to each of those components, they know where to act first. So they can start to plan and create a strategy and a real plan and roadmap when to do what and at which level. So all the resources, all the questions regarding budget and personal resources, everything will be cleared in this step. And finally, of course, it is necessary to really migrate to the new infrastructure. That means to integrate those new technologies, because otherwise you are still in the state of being vulnerable, but you are quantum ready. The real fact is at the end where you really migrate to those new technologies. And the first thing to do is to be crypto agile, meaning to be able to or to prepare the whole infrastructure to use different kind of security means. That means if a quantum computer comes, we can click and then finally change to those new mechanisms such as encryption schemes or new digital signatures or new components. And this is very important, to be flexible for the quantum threat.
Looking forward to see this tool where you just click a button and everything changes. So I think there's a way to go, and I think it's a good example where we see that first of all we need standardization. I think it's a big thing, and then also since it's a hardware issue, it's a software issue, it's a process issue. I mean, there are so many people need to come together. It's such a big effort for the whole market. It's not just the institutions, but I mean, they use hundreds of software providers, hardware providers, infrastructure providers. So therefore, it will be very interesting to see. And I think I cannot compare this to any kind of other event or undertaking we have seen in last years. So therefore, it's huge. So and. Yeah, but Peter, you're also on the panel. So I think coming from this angle that we need basically people need to come together. We need to form a community. It's a joint effort, not just on the security side, but also to develop these use cases. And I think we addressed a couple of times that resources is the limiting factor, isn't it? So I mean, I'm in emerging technologies. I know how hard it is to hire people who have cloud experience, blockchain experience, but now, I mean, it's quantum computing. I mean, I think the community is super small. I mean, it's a lot of academia, of course, but I think at least my view is that the next step we need to bring the application, so not just focus on the hardware side, so leaving the academia behind and focusing on the real world problems. So, I mean, what do you think is the role of TechQuartier and your community here, or what role do you emphasize to foster this community?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is to build this community here in the open space and to have all the players around and discussing use cases. But let me elaborate a bit, taking this the view of the industry. Yeah, I was working the last 24 years. Yeah. When you look at the annual, you mentioned the 2 billion of the German government investment. Yeah, this program is running, I think, 2 or 3 years. Yeah, so it's less than 1 billion per annum. And if you compare it with the annual budget of the German government for research, which is 20 billion, so we're talking about an investment below 5%. Yeah, when you ask the same question for the industry, what is the industry, banking industry, investing on quantum computing these days? Yeah, I have no numbers, but I'm coming from there. My impression is that 40% is still going to regulation. Yeah, 30% is going for cloud services, IT infrastructure, and the other 30% is going for AI business, big data platform business models. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that the total investments going to quantum computing and banking these days is below 1%, or maybe even in the range of basis points. Yeah, so this might be different for big American investment banks. This might be different in China, where they addressing the crypto topic for political reasons. Yeah. So one thing is certainly getting more investments in there, getting more people in there. Yeah. But how does this happen? Yeah. I think one issue is really that the hardware is so that you can solve real life problems. Yeah. And happy to hear that 1,000 qubits might make a quantum leap on this, but that's a certainly important thing. The next thing is you mentioned in your presentation certain use cases, and they are certainly relevant from a understanding point, from an intellectual perspective. The critical question is, what does it mean for the banking in their real world? Yeah, just imagine doing a stress test with certain scenarios using a quantum computer, and you're trying to get in crypto agile. What does it mean? Yeah, that's something which is really the key question. And when you have answered these kind of questions, the industry will come. Yeah, so it's certainly an issue of getting more tangibility, more usability, more understanding in the daily operations of a bank for the use cases. Yeah, and to get this, you need a community to talk about. You need to get all the players together. You need a platform to do this. And that's certainly something where I think you mentioned in your report the power of ecosystem. Yeah? This was one of the things and I totally confirm this, and I experienced this in this project on big data, AI, which we are running. The collective intelligence, putting topics forward, having people talking about this is something which is needed. So getting it out of the fancy part, getting it in the mainstream, having platforms, having a user group, and discussing real-world problems, and getting use cases and usability and tangibility. That's the point, and I think here TQ can really help. Not so much from the intellectual part, I mean, you have enough understanding certainly here, but really to manage this community. Yeah, that's the part of TQ.
Perfect, I think that's a great outlook. So, and not just to have the meetup, Niklas, but also then have a wider community in a setup. And of course, EY is happy to participate. I think we have a question here in the audience, so before we close our panel.
Thank you very much for the words said today and the insights gained. We talked a lot about opportunities, but also about threats. Yeah, and I, as a crypto holder, I'm asking myself, how safe is my Coinbase wallet? Because after what you have said today, and you said it's going to be in the next 4 or 5 years, isn't it pretty easy to hack my public or private key and empty my digital wallet I have, for example, at Coinbase? So what can Coinbase do, or is it already too late to do something about these crypto hackers?
Well, very good question. Yes. So there are many coins out there, right? And many of them use old-fashioned crypto or classical crypto. Well, the answer is straightforward. They can be broken. So an adversary that waits for coins or to get access to a quantum computer in order to steal money, well, this may be possible, right? So if there's no another protection, so there exist ways to circumvent these problems. However, at the moment, right now, all those coin-based crypto, there exist some coins which are resistant against quantum computer attacks, but there are also many of them which use old-fashioned crypto. So it is possible for an adversary to break them. But there's a but. When it is widely announced that there will be a quantum computer, we will also hear from everywhere that it is possible to break those coins. So everyone will then will try to change the coins they have into euros or other currencies in order to protect their own money. But if this does not happen, well, the fault is yours. So it has nothing to do with Coinbase itself, right? Because Coinbase provides just the platform, right? It is really the blockchain itself which needs to be designed to be quantum secure. That means, yes. So there exists. So one point, there exists a lot of, wallets which are closed, right? They have been lost because the keys do not exist. So, and there's a lot of money which has been lost due to that. So, a first way would be to somehow, to break those wallets in order to get back the money. However, as I said, once it will be widely announced that there are quantum computers available, everything will change. So it's somehow it's a real problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I think there's another question here, Francesco, if you mind.
Hello. Yes. So I was wondering, hearing everything about the quantum computing, I was wondering, where do you see the ecosystem, everything surrounding quantum computing, especially in the context of business or personal use, where we need to basically step up the game to have it sufficient? I mean, think about it, quantum computing being a very powerful tool, but if the drivetrain and the tires don't work, we can't really use basically the power of quantum computing. Is there something where you say, okay, we do have to change this, or we have to step up the game in this area?
Peter, do you want to?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the AI models or neural networks, they were around essentially when I was a student in the 80s. What has changed in between? It's a lot more data and much more powerful computers. So I think we have a very good understanding today of what quantum computing is about. But we need the infrastructure, and we need the community to talk about, to get it to the real world. And that's something, a step to take forward. Just getting people from the relevant industries, banks, big corporates, here together with the startups, and then talking through real use cases and trying to make MVPs. If you have of course, you can only do it if you have a quantum computer who can solve a real world problem. And this is a process which takes a while, but I think this is the only way to go forward. Having this kind of dialogue.
Maybe I can add this. This was actually originally the idea behind the IBM Quantum Network, to bring the ecosystem together, so startups, universities, with companies in one network to connect and to think about quantum, about use cases, about developments, and how to go further with this topic. And actually, startups are also, let's say, possible members of our own. JOS is one member of the network, and you have access then to, let's say, the premium devices, for example, and other, let's say, advantages. Right? So, but this is also, let's say, one topic why I'm very happy to be here in the TechQuartier, because here is, let's say, the heart of the startups in the finance industry and in Germany, I would say. And to work together with you in this kind of area would be very happy.
So maybe speaking from our experience, so actually many companies are very interested in the technology, but at the end it is incredible when
when we have the chance for like an expert interview with somebody building models at a bank or a financial services provider, really working on the models. These are the persons that need to get involved in the process. But usually, these people usually have, coming from mathematical background, informatics, physics, they usually have a 150% workload on different topics. But these are the really persons that we need to talk with them, because they understand what the issue is in their current models. And they are able to understand the potential of quantum. So if they are getting freed up sometime, at the beginning, it can be hours, a week, just to talk and to understand what are the potentials. This is the first step. And it's quite easy, and it doesn't mean an initial huge investment. But to do a first step and to understand what are the potentials and then build your strategic plan for the next 5 to 10 years. I think this is the time to do now.
Maybe let me add one thing. The challenge when you take risk management and banking is not that it's not an intellectual issue. I think there are enough people out there who have understood it intellectually. And I'm also sure on quantum computing it's a bit harder. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure people have understood this. The problem is to getting it in the operations. And the problems the banks have with the ECB is not that their model is not smart enough. They just don't have the data, and the processes are too complex. Yeah? And they have not enough people, not enough IT resources to get the data cleaned. So there are much more basic problems they have and where the findings are than they are not smart enough on understanding the issue. And that's the issue. When you bring up the use cases, you have to address these points. And then the industry will listen.
Yeah, perfect. I think it's a good point. And we don't want to talk about regulation because, of course, banks are also regulated. But I think that we take for another session to talk about how to regulate quantum computing. But maybe to come to an end. So maybe final round. And I think you already said a couple of words. So I mean, what is your advice from your perspective, from every one of you, on what should financial institution do now, basically to tap their foot into the quantum computing topic or to get engaged, apart from becoming part of the TQ network, which Peter will launch later on. So, but maybe your view, Niklas.
Well, that's the plan we are providing, and this is like the services we are providing currently is getting financial institutions a chance to tap into the technology, like the kind of knowledge transfer and the use case detection and validation. So this is the first step to this new technology.
Yeah, start, build the ecosystem, and of course do it at TQ.
Yeah, as already said, start now. It is important because also already said the journey to quantum takes a lot of time for you. It takes years. So start now to be quantum ready and join the ecosystem. Join TechQuartier, join the IBM Quantum Network, or else to get in exchange with other experts and start your journey now.
Yeah, many things have already been said. I think it's really important to when you start to first of all understand where you stand, which opportunities it provides, and furthermore to provide access to it to the own employees. So education is one of the important aspects of this kind of new technologies, because there are a few people just understanding it, not so many understanding the ultimate ingredients of those technologies. Therefore, it is very essential that employees get educated, but not only employees, but all the the stakeholders We need to start with it with students at the universities, getting into contacts with students, building up an ecosystem with partners which very fast help to understand or to integrate services, understand the different use cases. And by this, I think you can build up a step-by-step knowledge, and then by yourself develop the own, expertise in this area.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And it's great to see all the enthusiasm. And hopefully we will meet very often now in regular here at the TQ. And of course, EY is trying to do our thing on supporting the community to become quantum computing ready. So thank you very much to all of you for your insights. It's been a pleasure to moderate the panel. And I think we see us hopefully more often, and hopefully we can of course encourage everyone who's on the live stream to download Qiskit. Now also to do some advertisement for IBM, to download Qiskit, get involved in programming. Yeah. It's open source, exactly, and get engaged. So perfect. Thanks very much, and hand over to you, Francesco.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, Rashid. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Peter, Nicholas, and of course, Jan as well. I think with this, we would like to conclude the event today. I think you have heard that many times. It's just the beginning. There will be an ecosystem coming up. There will be many initiatives. What kind of initiatives we're going to tell you soon, hopefully. What I would like to encourage to do is to engage with us. The contact details of everyone who was on the show today will be shared afterwards, right at the end of the event. And I'm looking forward to engage with you, and we are looking forward to engage with you all together. So please stay tuned. Enjoy the rest of the evening. We will take care also of the questions that you have been asking, so no worries about that. Having said that, thanks a lot once again. Enjoy the evening, and see you soon, hopefully. Take care. Ciao.